mention every sort of drop point as a dagger now. I think that's been the biggest difference between the Pep Guardiola era, shall we call it, in the Premier League, where even a draw now, you used to be able to get away with drawing a lot of games and maybe still winning the title, but a draw is almost as bad as a loss now, as Liverpool know, as Arsenal know all too well from last season when you went on that incredible run and it still wasn't enough because City was so good. So I think for Arsenal now, that's their 5th draw of the season already. That is a big reason. And we've spoken before about the need for extra creativity when Odegaard's either not playing or can't maybe find a way through, as was the case against Fulham, and also potentially the need for a striker to come up with that something. And I think we spoke last week about you need that striker to turn those 1-1 draws into 2-1 wins, and we saw that on again in the Fulham game, didn't we?
Yeah, we did. It was that's the sort of game when the striker debate at Arsenal will always rear its head after a game like that. The real sort of tight games when it's not quite happening for you, but you are, basically camped around the opposition box, and maybe you just need someone to score a goal out of nothing, pop up and do something out of nothing. And Arsenal, they don't really have that player, and it's been an issue. You go back to the big sort of games of last season, the Bayern Munich defeat in the Champions League, for example, when it was really, really tight, 2-2 in the first game. You go over to Munich, it was tight, 0-0 for a long time. Can someone score a goal out of nothing and send yourselves through? And Arsenal don't really have that type of player, whether it be a striker or a kind of X-factor attacker. I looked at Michael Olise, for example, last season. I just felt he was perfect, tailor-made for Arsenal for what they were looking for, because there was an acceptance at Arsenal after that Bayern game that type of X-factor player who could create something out of nothing and win a tight game out of nothing was needed and was going to be looked for in the summer. Ultimately, they didn't find who they were looking for because they didn't bring anyone in. But I looked at Olise, I thought he could have been perfect for Arsenal in those types of games. I mean, you sort of look at the striker debate and you talk and sort of aim that towards Chelsea, for example. And I know Nicholas Jackson's had a good season. I think he's a good player, good striker. He's got something about him, Nicholas Jackson. But he's not, at the very top of the game right now. And they're still scoring plenty of goals because they've got so many different attacking options that they can turn to. Not necessarily a central striker, but you've got, if you're not playing Pedro Neto, you're playing Madueke, for example. If you're not playing João Felix, you're playing another one of their counter swingers who have just gone off the top of my head there, but there's plenty of them. And then you've got Cole Palmer, that sort of mercurial player who floats in and around and could just score so many goals for them and does score so many goals for them. Arsenal kind of lack that sort of player. So I'm still not, look, I would like another striker at Arsenal, no doubt about it, but I still feel like it's not necessarily, it has to be a number 9. It just has to be another proper goal threat that they just don't have at the moment. You look at the number of goals they score, it's not quite enough. And in these really tight games, that's where it's apparent in terms of, they share the goals around and that's great. And so ultimately you look at the goals tally and they are up there. I think only Brentford and Chelsea have scored more than them in the Premier League this season. So it's like, well, what's the fuss about? But it's in those, they're obviously shared around. It's someone who could maybe get a 20, 25 goal a season. Man, Arsenal just don't quite have that at the moment. And in those games against Fulham, you sort of looked at it